Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Justin here from Zon Commerce. I am an FBA Amazon seller. Been selling for many months now. Been kind of in the space, really learning the ropes. I come from more of a digital marketing background. I have a digital marketing agency where we do service search engine optimization, paid search clients. And the whole Amazon private label world has really exploded, and I kind of saw it as an opportunity to add it as another service to what we do for clients. But also, I was like, well, what better than to get the experience than actually becoming an FBA seller myself? And so I started doing it, got into the space for some time, and decided that I was going to continue to expand as much as I possibly could. So we continued to add more and more products to our line, to our brand or brands, if you will. And also we expand internationally. So now we sell on a global level. We sell in not just the United States, but we also sell in Germany, Spain, Italy, France, Canada, the UK. We even sell in Japan, which is really a cool market. And so, I feel like I have a lot of experience, both in the business world as well as in this whole world of Amazon selling. There have been some people that have made millions of dollars in this space. We're not at that stage, but we're doing pretty well. And through my experience, I felt like it was important to just kind of talk about some really important tenets, some areas that are critical if you want to get into the Amazon private label business, if you want to sort of ship and source your own products from China, India, wherever, and send those products to Amazon, there are certain things that you really need to take heed to before you get into this business so you really understand what it requires. So, I have kind of like my own list. I have about 9 things that I put down here. I'm sure that there's 20, 30 other things that other private label sellers would mention. But here are my 9 that I think are very important to at least getting started and things that you should be aware of when you get into this business. And so for me, the first thing is this requires upfront capital. This really does require some money. And I'm not talking about, back in the day where you could start an affiliate website, do some search engine optimization, throw a bunch of links to it. It only costs you like $100-$200 to do that. We're talking about an initial investment of at least $1,000, maybe $500, depending on whether you source your products through AliExpress. You're able to get only 50 or 100 units, or if you go directly through Alibaba, but you have a very flexible supplier that's going to work with you. So, don't think that, a lot of people, a lot of private label sellers will say, oh, the barrier to entry is high. Or that it's low. In my opinion, it's not high or low. It's just that most people aren't willing to put that much money up front. And so that actually can be a good thing. If you're able to get into this space, start your own private label business in any of the categories that are available, knowing that you're going to have to spend at least $1,000 to $3,000, $4,000 to get started is critical. It does require money, but that investment that you make, trust me, you're going to make that money back or at least break even if you pick a product that didn't do as well as you expected. And that's the great thing. Even if you do have money that you have to invest in at that level, 7 to 8 times out of 10, if you're doing everything right and the product doesn't take off, you're still going to be able to get that money back in a certain period of time. So I just want to make everyone aware of that. So, the money that folks spend on a lot of these courses, that might be $5,000, $4,000. It's a ton of value in those courses. I'm not going to knock that. But that's money that you could put towards your inventory, towards other education that might be a little less expensive, things that could really make a difference in the long run. So that's just one thing to consider. The next thing is that this isn't a business where it's all about quick wins, where you're coming into the business and you're just trying to get this one product that's going to really take off really quickly and you're going to make a ton of money in a short period of time. We're not in this business for the short term. We're not trying to, be a part of a fad, something that's just trending. We're trying to be a part of something that's sustainable, something that can, you really stand the test of time for at least 3 to 5, up to 10 years potentially. And if you can look at it that way, that gives you more of that, the insights and the courage in the understanding that this isn't a short-term business. this is something that you can do for a very, very long time and build out into other channels. Amazon doesn't have to be the only private label channel that you leverage. You can leverage your own e-commerce website. You can also leverage eBay, Etsy, other distribution platforms. You can even take it a whole nother level and start reaching out to distributors and retail shops where you can sell your private label products in. So I want you to look more big term, more big picture. And so that kind of also bleeds into the other point here, which is this is really about brand building. You don't want to build a business on just a product. Many of you may know that there are probably about, let's say 3 or 4. There's a lot number of ways that you can grow a business, but the first being organically, where you started a product or a service and you're growing organically with just that product. The other way is through multiple products, where you have multiple products that are very similar. And then the third is through locational growth, where you're growing not just in the United States, but you also want to grow in Japan, UK, Germany, other places. Those are the 3 ways that you can grow. Now, yes, you could do all those things. You can't do all those things. You can certainly grow locationally with just one product. But if you want to build a brand, you have to have multiple products, and you have to have multiple products that are in multiple markets. And that's what gives you this beautiful asset that is not only earning you a decent income, but an asset that you can potentially sell in the future if you wanted to. So I just like to tell folks that, when you get into this business, it's not about just the product, it's about the brand. And you thinking big picture around what type of brand can I build, and how can I grow it so I have this great asset that if I wanted to, I could sell it, and it could sell really well on one of these broker websites, if you will. The next thing is best-selling rank. Best-selling rank on Google, I'm sorry, not on Google, I'm still in the world of digital marketing and SEO. On Amazon is sort of this metric that every single Amazon seller looks at. And it's just to take everyone to what exactly it looks like. Let's say if I'm doing a search on fanny packs, and I go to, let's say I go to these guys, Everest multiple packet waist pack. And I scroll down here, and you see that these guys have a BSR, best-selling rank, of 13,813 in the clothing category. Now, there are a lot of different categories. You have sports and outdoors, you have kitchen and dining, you have home and garden, there's a lot of different different categories out there, but knowing where your competitors are from a BSR standpoint is so critical, so important. Because what the beauty of this is telling you exactly how many sales this person is getting each and every day. This is a rolling average for that person. So that if they're in a 13,000 in clothing, I'm not quite sure what that number looks like because the BSR is different across each individual category. But let's say if you're in the kitchen category and you see that there are a number of competitors that have a BSR or best-selling rank of 5,000, they're getting at least 10 to 15 sales a day, which is a really, really good number. And then you can extrapolate that out to, you can look at some of the other competitors and say, oh, wow, this could be a really great product because we know that there are some competitors in this space and they're doing relatively well. So know thy BSR. That's important. And not just knowing the BSR, but knowing how many sales each of those different levels will get. For me, I'll say that if you're at a 1,000 BSR in a particular category like kitchen and garden, you're doing at least 30 to 40 sales a day. If you're about 5,000 BSR in the kitchen category, you're probably doing somewhere close to 10 to 15, maybe 20 sales. If you're 10,000, something's probably closer to 5, maybe 10 a day, potentially, depending on the time of the year. So you got to know the BSR because that's also important to understand as well. Next, product is everything. I know I talked about brand building and how critical brand building really is, but you also have to know the product and pick a product that's going to possibly do well. And it has to be something that you can have some fun in. I mean, boring products do tend to interestingly enough, do well and stand the test of time. But you also want to have an interest in the area that you want to sell in. So, let's say if it's like an accessory for skateboarders, and you love skateboards, that could be a great area. Or if you're a scuba diver, maybe it's an accessory for scuba divers. That could be something else. You don't have to be fully passionate, but you definitely have to be vested and invested into the product. And also picking a product that has some scalability to it. Like you can branch out and create variations to that product and also other sorts of accessories in that same area. So that's one other thing I really want you to consider as you're looking at other products, within a certain industry or in a certain area for that matter. Next, you got to know your competitors. You got to know your competitors in your niche. And so when we were here on the fanny pack front and looking at all these guys, when I do a fanny pack, I want to know, are these competitors, how they're doing? And there are different tools that I use to track these guys. I use Camel. I use AMZ Shark. I've done tutorials on both of those, by the way. But for here, I want to know their pricing. I want to know what their pictures look like. I'll go really, really deep into some of these guys. And I'll say, okay, this is probably a brand because they have a ton of different variations. Their bullet points don't look that great. I'm not really going to look at these guys. Instead, I'll look at someone else to give a better sense. And by the way, there is another tool that I use called Jungle Scout. And this will go out and fetch all the information on that particular page for me. And so you see here that's going out. And you can see, even though these guys are a brand, they're also, let's see here, even though they're a brand, they are also on Amazon. So they sell directly. They wholesale directly to Amazon. So maybe, and they're selling at the price of $278. Yeah, Everest is making some money, but Amazon, they could be doing all right. I'm not quite sure, but we'll see. But these are the guys that you want to look at. The folks that are doing that have the label of FBA. Those are the ones that you really want to look at because those are your real competitors. That's when you can get a really good sense of how well you could do from a sales standpoint. But me personally, I wouldn't even look into this category because you look at the estimated revenues, they're pretty low. I'd be a little nervous about this, even though the sales rank for some of these categories are pretty decent. But again, the best-selling rank in some of these different categories are different than other categories, such as kitchen versus home versus sports and outdoors, for example. So this is a really good tool I use. I use it all the time when I'm doing research. It really speeds up my research process. But I thought it was important to just say you got to know your product and you also got to know your competitors and be willing to jot down some of that information as you go through the process before you get into this business. The next thing is pricing really does matter. There's another tool out there that Amazon has given us. It's called the Amazon Revenue Calculator. And it calculates the revenues and all the way down to the profit margins for individual sellers. So you can literally take any ASN number, put it into that calculator, put the actual low or high, sales, revenue or, the actual price for that product, and it will give you a sense of what the potential profit margins are. So the reason why that's important is you want to go after products that have at least a 35-40% margin. If you can't get that, then it's not worth the time, in my judgment. And maybe it is if you have multiple products and you're trying to branch out into other opportunities. But for your first product, you really want to aim for those margins that are greater than, let's say 35-40%. And you also want to aim for those products where you can make at least $5 per sale. I know there are some cases where you can only make $4. I get that. But $4 to $5 is really my minimum, the absolute minimum that I want to make on a per product basis. And then here's the last piece, is really the courage and just being able to stick with it. If you get into this business and let's say after 3 months, you put the money into the inventory and you see the product is doing okay, but it's not doing as well as you wanted to, and you just kind of give up. What if you put an additional week or 2 weeks into it? What if you made some changes to the pictures on the site? What if you made some changes to the bullet points? What if you did another quick launch? What if you started doing some low cost, advertising, and your sales just really started to, really take off? You never really know. And that's the issue that I think a lot of people that get into this business have. They start a brand, they start a product, or start with a product, they get into it, but then they stop because it's not doing, $10,000 a month in sales, or it's not doing $2,000 a month in sales. I don't care. For me, when I look at this business, I'm looking at it from a long-term perspective, and now we're at a point where we're doing, quite a bit. I'll just say that much. We have, well over 8 to 10 products that we're doing. We're selling all around the world, and that's sort of the mindset you have to look at. You have to have the courage to start up those new products. You have to have the courage to push just a little bit more to get the product to where it needs to get to, so it's a little bit more stable. You have to have the courage to do the research and go into some of those other markets so you can really build an asset, really build a brand. And for me, that's really been the experience of, selling on Amazon. It's not easy. There is a lot of competition, but in my judgment, competition is a good thing, because if there's blood in the water, that means there's sharks, and that means there's more food and more opportunity for everyone. It's just a matter of how you differentiate yourself, how you create your brand, and figuring out all those different conversion levels, within your listings, whether it's your pictures, whether it's the way the pictures look, the professionalism of the pictures, the copy. All those things really does make a difference, including the pricing. And if you're doing all those things and you take all that in consideration and you're ready to really get into this, I'm telling you, the Amazon FBA private label world can be very, very lucrative. And you can also build a really long-term sustainable asset for the long haul. So I just want to kind of give everyone some insights, and I also want to show my mug on the camera for once, which I haven't done in a little bit. I hope this has been helpful. Again, this is Justin from Zon Commerce. Feel free to shoot me an email, or join our Facebook group, or just visit us at www.zoncommerce.com. And look forward to touching base with everyone. Thanks so much. Take care.